I hope you guys are ready to make some money this week because I have a great feeling this week will be one to remember. We have a lot going on in the markets this week, like Nvidia earnings, a soaring put-to-call ratio, and even more importantly, the Jackson Hole Symposium. So a lot of you guys are probably like, what is that? But basically, we have some very important events this week. And last time we had an event of this caliber, the market literally went crazy. So you guys better stick with us to the end of today's video. We have a lot of very important things to cover. And guess what? We're not wasting any time. So Tom, let's jump right into today's episode.
Yeah, that price action last week was so nice, Mike. We had just continuous movement to the downside. We were following a key trend line on SPY, and it held up all week long. And then right into Friday, we actually start to break that trend line as Nvidia and a couple other stocks start to break some of their trend lines. And talking about some of these big trend lines coming up here, I mean, like you said, we have earnings this week with Nvidia. That is going to be huge. So keep that on the radar, and Jackson Hole as well. But just looking at the price action from last week, Mike, like with the way that we fell down, I don't know about you, but I would actually not be surprised if we had maybe like 1 or 2 days of green here. Friday was kind of the start to that, in my opinion. We saw just a slight pop back up, but I kind of feel like we could see a couple days of green come in here. Let me know in the comments what you guys feel about that, but it's definitely something I'm keeping on watch here for this week.
No doubt about that. And, you know, with a week like this, things can go crazy pretty quickly. So let's talk more about the lineup we have for this week. First things first, we have the Jackson Hole Symposium. This is basically like an event that happens one time per year. And, you know, it's basically like central bankers from all around the world. And they talk about, you know, the market and the economy and a bunch of important stuff like that. And what's kind of scary is the last time we saw this event, you know, last year in like August 25th and 26th, and I think August 24th, 25th, and 26th, the market crashed like harder than like any other point for that year. If we zoom in on like August 26th, that's when Powell spoke and the market just fell off of a cliff, not only on that day, but it continued to fall down for months after the fact. Basically what happened is Powell was just a lot more hawkish, or, you know, you could say negative than everyone was expecting, and the market did not like that at all. It fell like a rock, and, you know, everyone's probably going into this year's event like, Powell, I hope you're in a better mood because last year was pretty bad. I took a beating. So, you know, that's the big thing to watch out for this week, and it's very important. This event happens one time per year, and it gets crazy pretty quickly.
Yeah, and there's a lot of uncertainty right now. A lot of people are looking at what the feds are going to do with their policy heading into the end of the year because there's a lot of confliction here. Some of the Fed members are like this guy, John Williams, where they say we've got monetary policy in a good place. It's definitely restrictive, but we've got to watch the data. Like they're looking at maybe pausing there, right? Patrick Harker said, I believe that we may be at the point where we can be patient and hold rates steady. Another pausing guy. But then we scroll down, we read what Michelle Bowman says, and she says, I expect that additional increases will be likely and needed to lower inflation to the FOMC's goal. So there is some confliction there and a lot of uncertainty. And whenever Powell speaks at this event this week, it's going to give maybe more insight into what's going to go on here. Now, it would kind of suck if he goes up there and just says, yeah, we have to be adaptable. We have to look at the data, which he might do, but it should move the markets either way, Mike. We usually just see so much volatility upon any event with Powell. So hopefully he helps us maybe pop back up a little bit here. But with the way we've been moving lately, I'm a little bit worried.
See, Powell can either choose the nice way or he can choose the violent way. A lot of times with like FOMC speeches and interest rate decisions and stuff like that, Powell's just kind of like very like, I don't know what's going to happen. We'll just see. Like, you know, we're just going to play everything how it comes. But last year at the Jackson Hole event, he chose violence. So I'm hoping this year is not the same, but we will see what happens. And Tom, diving into the economic calendar for this week, it is worth noting that this event lasts for 3 days and it starts on Wednesday. So it has Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but Powell will actually speak on Friday. So Friday is the most important event to watch out for.
Yeah, it looks like Friday at 10:05 a.m. Eastern Time. A little bit strange there with the 5 minutes, but 10:05 a.m. Eastern Time nonetheless. So be ready for that Friday morning. Definitely going to be big. And looking at the economic calendar, there's not really too much on the week here. There is some Fed members speaking like Bowman and Barkin on Tuesday, and then, durable goods orders. But really, besides that, Powell's all we have here on this.
All righty, there we go. Some scary data that I saw over the weekend shows that the put to call ratio is absolutely soaring right now, and as you might expect, that's not necessarily a great thing. So basically what we're seeing right now is, a whole lot more puts being traded relative to calls and, their historical average. So basically what we can see is every time there's like panic or fear or just, bad times in the market, guess what happens? That put to call ratio soars. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing right now. So take this information how you will, but it's not necessarily the greatest thing to see.
Yeah, it's really not. You can see every time that we've had a big bad event lately, we've been having those big pop-ups with the put-to-call ratio. So it seems like right now, obviously, the market's going down, so it makes sense that the puts would be starting to rise up here higher on that ratio, and it does make sense. We are falling down quite a bit here, Mike, and with the SPY, it's pretty insane. Like we go look at like how much it's kind of down here from high to low. From high to low, it got something close, already down over 5%. So that's quite a bit on a big index like this.
Exactly. And what's very interesting, Tom, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's like you look at the market right now, and there are some people that are like, oh, the market barely fell. It can fall, an extra 30%. And then you have the people that are like, oh, this is like a huge drop. I'm loading up right now. This is the best opportunity to buy long-term stocks ever, blah, 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 right? And realistically, what we're seeing in the market right now, this pullback is very, very mild. And basically with data going all the way back to 1928, we can see that the median drawdown is around 13%. And what's worth noting is that all this data is referencing closing prices specifically, so not intraday, but, not on average, but usually the pullback that we see each year is around 13%. So far in 2023, the biggest pullback we saw was around 8 to 9%. So if that puts anything into perspective for you, what the pullbacks that we've seen this year really aren't anything. It's like if we look back through some of these other years, we're seeing like in 2022, a 25% pullback. In 2020, I know that's kind of crazy, but like a 34% pullback. But even in 2018, 20% pullback. 2016, 10.5% pullback. 2015, 12.4% pullback. So it's like, mathematically, it would not be uncommon to see us fall more.
Yeah, it really is. And what's also interesting to me is that in a lot of these years where we've had huge drops, like 2011, look at this, down 19.4% on the biggest drawdown, we still actually ended up being up 2.1% on the total return for the year there. So I found that interesting too. Like we could still be negative and then go positive. Now, do I think that that'll happen? Probably so, because, from 2023 to where we are now, if we're being realistic, Mike, like, look at where the SPY started this year, all the way down here. Let's see, right around, I'll just be perfect here. January 3rd was the first day of the year, it looks like. It was right around 380. Right now we're at 436. Like, could you imagine if we actually did go negative here this year, Mike? Like, I think that there's definitely more room to the downside. I would think maybe 430 in the short term. And then as we start to zoom out a little bit more, there's a huge support down here around like 415. So those are definitely going to be some bigger areas that I watch as the SPY keeps falling. And that would put us like, let's see, percentage-wise on SPY. I mean, down to like 415 would be like 9%. Down to 400 would be that magical 13%, Mike.
Uh-oh. Like, I don't really see SPY going negative this year, and I'm sure you agree with me, Tom, but, if you don't, obviously let me know. But, looking at the pullback right now, it's like a lot of it depends on Jackson Hole and some of these earnings that we have left. But, I think that SPY is just going to cool off for a little bit. And I think that, it's just going to like chill out, like it's not like the news we have right now is like drop dead horrible. But at the same time, a lot of stocks are pretty overbought, and it would not be surprising at all to see just a little bit of like a cool down. We'll call it that.
Yeah, and I do agree with you there. Like, I don't see it going negative. I just see it maybe continuing to pull back slightly, but there's no way we could end up negative on the year. I mean, if we do, something really bad's going to happen. And something I also want to point out for the bulls out there, like if we look at like trend lines and some stuff like that, we start connecting some, like to be honest, like if you're still a bull out there, just wait on some of these pullbacks because it's going to be a great opportunity. Like, I don't think that the market's necessarily going to fall down. Like some people think we're going to go into like the Great Depression or something like that. Like, I just think it's a nice little pullback and then we're going to start to, come back up, and this will create a great buying opportunity here in a few months.
There we go. So speaking of fun opportunities and exciting events, we actually have a pretty awesome earnings lineup for this week, Tom, from some powerhouse stocks. The first and main one being NVIDIA that reports Wednesday after the bell. So basically in terms of earnings, all eyes are on NVIDIA this week. They move in very crazy ways. The stock is still at a pretty high level right now, and that stock sure knows how to move. So keep a very close eye on NVIDIA for this week. It is one that gets a lot of attention, to say the least. But Tom, like even looking at some of these other earnings reports, I think there's a lot of opportunity this week. You guys know that I talk about Zoom a lot, so I'll have close eyes on Zoom. But even with Baidu before open on Tuesday, and even like Snowflake on Wednesday after close, I think this week should make for a pretty good one.
Yeah, exactly. And even firms like mixed in Thursday, Marvel, they're a pretty big chip stock too, if you guys haven't checked them out. But yeah, there's a lot going on this week. Even like looking down here, Nordstrom's reporting. That's going to be a pretty fun one for the retailers, but it's going to be a good one, Mike. NVIDIA's always amazing. They're one of the funnest reports out there. And honestly, with them rising up in market cap so much lately, they're also one of the biggest stocks out there as of the past couple years. So I'm glad to see them up as much as they are lately. But man, they've been pulling back hard. They need to have a good report, Mike, or else I feel like that daily chart could just get worse.
All righty. Well, let's get right into some setups for tomorrow. One stock I'm watching very closely is PayPal, and this poor stock, what some of our members will say, got taken out to the woodshed lately. So looking at PayPal, basically this thing went from like $77 all the way down to like, we'll call it $57 in just a couple weeks, and it has been nasty. So, right now it's just under $60 a share. The all-time highs on this thing are like close to $310 that it made back in 2021. And especially over like the past couple of weeks, this thing is very oversold. So I am going to be watching this one for a pop back up and, an upside play. But I will say this, these setups can take a couple days. So, a lot of times when we see like big sell-offs, you do see the stock like consolidate for a couple days and then pop up. So just keep that in mind. So like I'm watching PayPal to the upside, but we do have to be a little bit careful of like a fake out, whether it be tomorrow or even Tuesday.
Yeah, because like we could continue that downtrend here, but I like the play, Mike. That was a big green candle yesterday, and a lot of times, those candles are kind of like the starts to some of those trends. So I like that. I think PayPal looks pretty good. It's very sold off, and I'm not saying it's going to fill this gap here, Mike, but man, that would be awesome if we got up to like 67 to 70 and started filling that. That would be really, really good over the next few weeks. With my first play, I'm actually looking at Microsoft in both directions because with Friday's movement, I kind of feel like there could be a slight pop out of the market. There's been so much selling pressure lately. Like if we zoom out on Microsoft, it looks kind of like PayPal, right? Like over the past few weeks, it's been pulling back quite a bit. Now, if we end up moving to the upside tomorrow above like 318.50, I'm going to watch for a nice pop up to 320 for a scalp. That'll be a pretty good level to watch to the upside. But if we end up falling down under 315, then I'm going to actually eye up more puts. So I'll be watching Microsoft in both directions. I do think that we could see a slight pop up. That's why I'm giving that upside level, even though I'm still mainly bearish here.
All right, good stuff. Another stock I'm watching is Google, but it's actually to the downside. This stock is, I don't want to say it's been like extremely weak, but it has certainly not been strong lately. It's just been like lollygagging around, just bouncing, doing nothing. And it is starting to break a little bit lower recently, so I am watching it to the downside. I would love to see a break below like 126.50 or so, and then, eventually like a retest of 120. But, it all depends on like the overall market sentiment as well and, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And looking at some of these levels coming up here in the short term, like 126.50 to 126, even 125 is pretty big. And let's actually go over to Bookmap and check those areas out. So that like low of day from last week that you mentioned at 126.50 is going to be crucial. Like if that low of day breaks, you can see there was some liquidity coming in there on the Bookmap, but there's even bigger levels like at 126 and 125. There's a lot of buyers down there. So maybe you could scalp it down to that and then under there if it keeps breaking. But it's so good to see these levels, Mike. The X-ray vision is definitely important here whenever you're watching for big levels and big supports.
Exactly. So if you guys want to get access to this X-ray vision that basically shows you exactly where buyers and sellers are and literally shows you like perfect support and resistance, definitely check out that first link in the description in the comments down below. Bookmap is awesome, and we actually have a deal with them where if you guys use our link, you get access to special offers that save your money. So definitely check it out. Bookmap is pretty awesome, and we're also going to get some awesome charts like this. So it's going to be that first link in the description and the comments down below. But Tom, what's your last play? Everyone's waiting for it.
Oh, yeah, Mike. So with my last one, it's actually a stock that you've mentioned a lot lately, and it's Citigroup. Now, I'm watching this one in both directions. If we go out to an hourly chart, it's been falling down out of this trend line pretty hard lately. I've been watching that trend, and I was actually waiting to buy in just in case it broke down, and unfortunately it did. But it's down on major support now. Like this support around 41 to 42 is huge, and $42 specifically is really, really big. So I'll be watching it this week for a potential bounce back to the upside. I think it just in the short term, it's just oversold way too hard, and I could see a short-term uptrend. Maybe 2 to 3 green days here are what I'm watching for. So I will be watching it for a slight bounce off that support. I don't know what's been going on with these banks, Mike, but they have been getting bloody with the market lately.
No doubt about that. Well, remember the Fitch potential downgrades too. You know, that definitely didn't help those bank stocks.
Yeah, I forgot about that news actually on the banks lately. Yeah, that was pretty big. Yeah, played a big role, and then they even downgraded the U.S. like that. I just can't believe that they did that to the U.S. even, Mike. Like to see that credit rating go down, and now they're like threatening J.P. Morgan and these other ones. That's kind of scary.
No doubt about that. Well, let's jump right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. With the first one, we have Microsoft to the downside.
MSFT, yeah, if they fall down under 315 tomorrow, go ahead and look at those puts. That's a pretty big area of support intraday.
All right, with the next one, we have Meta also to the downside.
I really like this one, Mike, but I don't know here. It started popping back a little bit. If they break under 280, watch it down. That's a big even level there.
All right, and then with the last one, we have BABA for both directions.
BABA, yeah, those China stocks did pretty well, but ended up falling off on Friday there. I'm looking at a move to the upside above 88.50, pretty big support in the short term, and it even consolidated a little bit there on Friday. Now, if they fall down and they get under $87 even, then I'll go ahead and look at puts. Just, be a little careful, give or take about 20 cents there. There was some bounce around 86, 88 too.
Alrighty, so we have that downside level on BABA. If it breaks below that, we're watching it for puts. And then we have the upside level as well. If it breaks above that, we are watching it for calls. But also don't forget about Meta and Microsoft. If they break below their downside levels as well, we are watching those ones for puts. But it is now time for the big money $361,000 trade of the day, and we are looking at WMB. So someone dumped $361,000 into the WMB 35 strike call options that expire on September 15th of 2023. Looking at WMB, it's been in a pretty solid uptrend lately. I think this stock has potential to keep going higher, but honestly, we would have to see like a pretty nice breakout. This trade, isn't even like that big of a big money trade. A lot of times we see $800,000 trades, $2 million trades, or, every now and then we have a $10 million plus trade. So while this one isn't too much, if we do see like a breakout, maybe above like, $35.79, then I would consider playing this one to the upside. But, I think the best move right now would just be to wait for that breakout.
Yeah, that would be nice to see the break there. That's been a huge area of resistance. Like whenever I scroll back over the past few years, I don't know how many bounces we've had here. Like 1, two of them that were like damn near perfect here, and then one of them went all the way up to 38, but there was still a lot of consolidation right around that 35-ish area. So I'll definitely keep this on the radar, Mike. Like you said, not the biggest big money play ever, but it's definitely interesting considering how much they've been going up lately and how they're at resistance. I will be watching this maybe as like it could be some covered calls or something like that, but like you said, I think waiting for that breakout's really key on this one.
Exactly. All righty. Good stuff there. But Tom, we have an action-packed week ahead of us. We have the one time a year Jackson Hole Symposium. We have some exciting earnings. We have stocks at a big level. It should be pretty exciting overall. Lots of opportunity all across the board, whether it be to the downside or the upside. I think it's going to be a great week. So I'm pretty excited. If you guys are new to the channel for some reason and you're not subscribed, destroy that subscribe button. When you do, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. We put hours and hours worth of time into these videos where we find out all the important things you need to know for the week, some fun charts and some great setups. So when you subscribe, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. It's a win-win, so destroy that subscribe button. But Tom, do you have any final thoughts before we close out?
Yeah, I mean, it's nuts. We have NVIDIA earnings, a few big stocks reporting this week. Watch those. NVIDIA is going to be crucial in my eyes. I'm really watching this short-term trend line here. We started breaking it on Friday. Maybe we'll start to move back to the upside a little bit with that breaking, or maybe we'll start to fall down below. Those earnings will definitely get us some big moves here. Let's be ready this week. Be adaptable. I know the market's been going down a lot lately, but I am worried about a couple days of green coming in, maybe some dead cat bounces, so just be aware of that. I feel like in the short term, we're a little bit oversold, but I'm still bearish over the next few weeks. But for tomorrow, maybe a green day continuing off Friday, but we're going to be watching it closely, Mike. Big trend lines in play, big events. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, and I love how he talks about being adaptable. You know, like if you go into the market tomorrow saying, no matter what happens, I'm going to short the market, or even if you go into the market tomorrow saying, no matter what happens, I'm going to go long the market, it's just not a good thing, right? You have to be adaptable in this market. The market is changing right now, and if you can't adapt, you can't survive. We said this multiple times over the past couple weeks, but take each day as a new day. The market is changing, and it's important that you're able to, succeed in these types of environments. So it should be a pretty great week overall. Thank you guys all so much for watching. And last but not least, we want to give a huge shout out to today's member of the day, Mohammed F on YouTube. Thank you so much for all the support and comments lately. We appreciate you. Besides that, guys, let's have an amazing week.